Hey everybody, it's Moog from Mighty Car Mods here, and you may have heard by now that we have got a brand new feature film that is coming out on Christmas Day. Yes, that is December the 25th, and it is KEI to the City 2, a sequel to the film that we shot in Japan in 2014. And back then we did release a soundtrack for the film, and this year, all these years later, it is no different, and we've just finished the soundtrack for KEI to the City 2. It's available on Apple Music, it's available on Spotify, it's available on all the good streaming services, so you can get it. There's a link down below, but today I thought I'd give you a quick tour of the studio, show you some of the gear, show you how some of the music was made. So come with me and have a look around. This is our little foyer area here with an awesome mural here that was done by a street artist friend of mine called Jumbo. We actually went to high school together, and a lot of his artwork is around Sydney, and he came and did that for us. And just hiding up to the left there, you may also see a bonnet from a particular 350Z. So up the stairs here, we've got a number of studios. Marty's got a studio here, I've got a studio here, and we've got a live room as well. And we built this space entirely. We got plans from an acoustic architect, and then we worked with a builder and a carpenter to put this space together, and pretty much everything that we could work on ourselves, we did. Lots of the furniture is homemade. There's Marty over there. Hello, mate. So this is the space. It's cool just to kind of hang out in. There's a piano there, live room in there with drums, Rhodes, some synths. But this is the main room here where all of the music of Mighty Car Mods is made, and for the last 10 years this is where all of the music's been made. So today I'm going to run you through the system I use, how I put the music together, which synths we used for the soundtrack, why I used them, and pretty much give you a rundown, a peek behind the curtains of how the music of Mighty Car Mods is made. So the central component of the studio is a Pro Tools system, and my in and outs are all happening via an MBox Studio, which Avid actually sent me, which was really cool of them, so thank you very much. This is great because you've got lots of different inputs. You've also got inputs on the front, and there's two different outputs for headphones here, plus I'm running two different sets of monitors that you can change just by clicking your output, which is really great. The good thing about this is that back in the day, we were always recording vocals in another room, and we do have a room over there, but these days a lot of the vocals are done in the same space as the control room. It's just a bit vibier, and it's nice to work with musicians in the same space. So having two different lots of headphone outputs and two different volumes there makes it really good, because you can have one for the engineer and one for the artist as well. So when it came to actually putting the music together, the first thing that I had to do was work out what the opening titles would be, and I thought about it for ages, and then I realized that with Top Gun Maverick, I was thinking before I saw that film, how are they going to start it? Because the initial film back in the 80s, it was so iconic. Sure enough, when I looked at Top Gun Maverick, it was just exactly the same music done again. So I decided to recreate that theme that was from the original KEI to the City. So that's this kind of nice piano line that goes. It just kind of repeats around and round and round, and then there's strings and orchestration, and then I worked with an awesome local singer, November, who came and did the vocals, and it sounds a little bit like this. So once I had like the main intro music underway, then Iron Gab could work on the graphics, and once I knew that that was off and racing, then I could start working on the rest of the music. Now, I didn't actually use heaps of plugins for this music. I tried to focus on as many analog synthesizers as I could, and in fact, the real hero of this soundtrack is this Roland Juno 60 that came out in 1982. When I'm making music for Mighty Car Mods, I want to try and make sure that the music is stylistically correct and period correct for what it is that we're doing. So if we're working on an older car, I try and use older technology, newer cars, newer technology, and hopefully as the audience you get a sense that what you're hearing and what you're seeing is somehow meshed together. With a film like KEI to the City, we're seeing a bunch of cars from different generations, which means I get a chance to do music from different eras, which is, I think it's really fun. Now, the reason the Juno 60 by Roland is such a big deal is that this thing came out 43 years ago in September 1982. And in the 70s, lots of the synths that were coming out were monophonic. So if you look at the Moog Model D, the Korgs, you could only play one note at a time. Of course, you could adjust another oscillator to kind of play a fifth or something, but if you're pressing more than one note at a time, you're not hearing it. The Juno 60 changed all of that in a way that I guess was kind of affordable, and lots of people were actually using them in bands. And the big deal is that you could play chords for the first time, and they sound beautiful. You can transpose the chords up. You've got really beautiful filters on there as well. You could store settings in there as well, which was a pretty big deal back then, because with these synths, you can't actually store any settings. You've got to basically get a chart and write down where all of your knobs and faders are. But the other really cool thing about the Juno 60 is that it came with an arpeggiator, which will basically cycle notes around. So instead of just holding a note like this, if I turn the arpeggiator on, it'll go. And when you play chords with that, and you turn the filter up a little bit, what you start to get is really cool stuff like this. You can also make it get really wild. It's just a really cool sounding synth. And if you want to make bass notes or something, turn the arpeggiator off, bring the filter down, put the octaves down, turn that resonance down a little bit, put that down a bit more, bring this down. It's just really, really cool. Lots of different sounds there as well that you can play with. So I wrote a song called City Turbo. It's featuring the vocals of Glenn Cunningham, who is an epic singer from Sydney. He was a finalist on that TV show The Voice, but also sings with lots of really famous artists like Delta and Guy Sebastian and stuff like that. So he came in, I messaged him probably at about 9:30 on a Friday morning. He said he was around at lunchtime, so he came in and he sung the song. And that song became City Turbo, which sounds a little bit like this.
Without a fight, I'll send a flare into the night. I was mono, but I'm coming back in stereo.
The soundtrack's made up of a bunch of different styles of music. There's kind of cinematic stuff, there's some trance stuff, there's some more kind of hip-hop sounding things and sample-based music. But what I did use, which I was really excited about, was this new synth that's called an orchid that was made and developed by Australians, as far as I know, called Telepathic Instruments. It comes in a box like this. It's a pretty kooky thing. Originally, when they were sold, you basically had to sit online, and at a particular time, they would announce a password that would let you get on and buy it. But it's kind of an auto chord generator, or I think what they call like an ideas generator. So it's this really simple instrument that only has one octave worth of keys on it. And what it lets you do is just by holding a key and then designating with one of these buttons what kind of chords you want to play, if you hold a note while holding one of those, you'll get. And as those are playing, you can combine different kind of inversions and additions to those chords. So you could kind of add a minor ninth. And then you can set up filters on there as well. So if I go down here and I change this to filter, then as that's going, open it up, close it down, which is really cool. And I believe this synth was developed by the guy from Tame Impala, which is pretty cool. So it has a bunch of different sounds. You can also just use it for playing chords, which is kind of rad. And I think that there was probably heavily influenced by an old instrument that I've got under here, which is called a Suzuki Omnichord. This thing's wild. So this here is like a harp. And basically with this, I bought this off eBay many, many years ago for maybe $50 or $60. These are worth thousands of dollars now. And the idea is you kind of play it like a guitar and you hold what chord you want, and then with your other hand, you strum. We're just chilling out. Anyway, so the Orchid, I think, is kind of a new version of this. And interestingly, the Orchid is a synth that I got in 2025. So we're kind of using technology from the 70s for some of this. And then we're using technology that was literally, you know, kind of out this year, which is pretty exciting. But I also want to show you something else that I got my hands on this year that at first I hated. I thought this is the worst piece of technology to come out this year. I listed it on eBay. And then at the last minute, I went, oh, maybe I should just spend a bit more time with it. And it's since become one of my favorite pieces of equipment. And it only costs about $300 US, which is a sampler by Teenage Engineering, which is called the KO2. This is a 64 megabyte sampler, composer they call it. You cannot increase its storage. You get 64 megabyte, that's it. So what that means is you've got to kind of employ some creative ways of making your music, which does affect its sound, which sometimes gives you really nice or unexpected results. So it resembles a calculator, looks like something from the 80s, has a really nice tactile feel and sounds really good when you use it. It runs off a series of AA batteries, AAA batteries actually, 4 of those, but you can also power it from USB. To program the thing, you've got to do a bit of a deep dive into menus. It takes a little bit to get your head around. I actually made a whole video about this on my music Instagram, which I'll link down below so you can have a look. But I'll plug this thing in and show you what it does. So one of the best things about the KO2 is that it has a little speaker in it, and it also has a little microphone. And because it's battery powered, it means you can just kind of carry it around with you. It's not a really expensive piece of equipment, so you don't have to be too worried about putting it near drum kits or taking it out and about with you. So I've taken this overseas with me multiple times. But if you're kind of near a drum kit and you hear something cool like this, you just hit the sample button, press it, then you get a kick drum sound, snare drum, there's a ride cymbal. And so already once you've assigned them to some buttons, you can just play the drums on there, which is kind of cool. But you can also assign, we've got 12 pads and we've got 4 different banks. So there's 48 different options for sounds. And so I've recorded some chords on my Fender Rhodes in the other room and they sound like this. But often what I do, which is an old sampling trick from yesteryear, is you actually play everything that you want 1 octave higher than what you need. So it would sound like. So what you record really high is, and then what that means is you can turn it down and you get this real cool. So then once you've got those things, then you can. So there's lots of different effects and stuff you can do on there, touch effects, punch-in effects and things like that. But it's a really cool way of just being able to make some music and make it really quickly. There is a track that is on the album, which is made almost entirely with that. It's called KO Peanut. I love collecting musical technology from all sorts of different eras, but my favorite is probably stuff from 1978 because it's the year that I was born. So I've got lots of synths and stuff from that era, but also when I see wacky things come up, I just can't stop myself. Like there's this little sampler here, which I got in Japan, just wacky stuff, you know? And then people that play guitar may know this one, the Miku Stomp by Korg. Plug your guitar into that and it kind of makes Miku style vocals, which is very wacky. I've got some homemade instruments here as well that I've made, just some kind of circuits that just make noises and distortions and things like that. And I did get really interested in circuit bending different objects, and no doubt you may have seen my circuit bent Furby there. He's been adapted with a little control panel so that he can do all sorts of wacky things. But I also am just really interested in technology that is maybe a bit more lo-fi. It gives you an interesting character. One of the instruments that I've used for ages, I guess it's more a microphone than an instrument, is just a modified phone. So it's really simple. It's just got an on and off switch on it. It's got a guitar jack. You plug a battery into it and then you can record instruments with it. And it just gives everything a really nice kind of lo-fi phone sound. I will always prefer to record something physically than use a plug-in if that option is there. I like to just get it right. And I think that's probably also why I'm so attracted to analog synthesizers, because there is this sense of just having to commit to the sound. I think these days with sample libraries and with soft synths and things, it's amazing that you've got so many instruments at your fingertips, but sometimes it can feel overwhelming that there's so many options. And so with the song City Turbo, I just used the Juno for that. So all of the synth parts, it's got a little bit of guitar in it, but pretty much all of the synth parts were on that, and I decided if I need bass, I use that. I need pads, I need that. Any of the arpeggiated lines, I need that. And then what I can do is use more modern technology to make it work. So when I was running the arpeggiator, you can't set BPM on that, so I'm running it kind of manually with a click, and if it's not right, then you can use some kind of time expansion or some elastic time to try and get it right. Likewise with delays and things, I don't have a lot of guitar pedals and stuff like that, but there are a few classics that I love, including this. So this is called an echo chamber concert. I've never seen one of these again since, but what's really amazing about this is that it is a real tape delay. So as you can see in there, that is actual analog tape. And basically inside, I don't know if you can see in there, but there's a playback head and a record head, and they can physically move in space to decide what your delay sounds like and then feed back on itself. So that again is a way of getting a kind of a really interesting synthesizer sound or a guitar sound. And again, I can just record that into Pro Tools, and once it's in there, maybe it needs a little bit of EQ or something like that, but the sound is committed, and that means I can just move on. I like kind of working quickly, and when I'm doing my own music, I like committing to it because I've come from a commercial music background, writing music for Netflix, writing music for TV and commercials. Quite often the clients or directors need changes. In those cases, it really makes sense to be able to have everything in Pro Tools and use soft synths and things because you might need to change instruments later. And then once everybody approves it and says, yes, I can get a real singer in or real strings. But when it's Mighty Car Mod's music, Marty and I are directing the films ourselves. We're editing themselves. It's a tiny little team here. So it means that I can just explore, and I know that I'm not going to tell myself to change my own music later on because I've changed my mind. So using synthesizers and just recording them straight into Pro Tools means that it is fully committed. I want to give a massive shout out to the vocalists who appeared on this record. So that is November, Glenn Cunningham, Mark Augustin, and Katie Turner. I've never actually met Mark Augustin in real life, but many years ago when I released the song Collide that went on the black Honda Civic video, he actually downloaded that, rapped on it, uploaded his own version to YouTube, and I heard it and went, that's amazing. So I reached out and we've done a number of songs together since. He appeared on the 2014 soundtrack, so it was so great to get him all the way from California recording over there for a song for this. And also I want to say a massive thank you to Katie Turner. So she appeared on the Neon Lights album Quarter Mile Dreams, and so she's back again. And then Glenn Cunningham, of course you may remember his name from Take Me Back to Tokyo and also Parachute. He's an incredible singer. So I want to say thank you very much to all of the vocalists. The soundtrack is available right now. We decided to release it before the film came out so you can enjoy it, put it on in your garage, and I would love to see it get up the charts as much as it can. Probably the other most common question that we get is what is the best way of supporting artists and their music? Buying the song from iTunes is definitely the best way of supporting any artist that you follow. Otherwise, streaming it. Spotify is there. Sometimes artists release a vinyl or something, and I am considering doing that next year. But for now, you can get it on Spotify, Apple Music, all of the main music platforms. And it would mean the world to me if you want to have a listen or maybe share it and let me know what you think. And if you've got any questions, maybe I can answer them down below. So the soundtrack is out right now. The film is out on Christmas Day. Thank you very much for supporting the show. Thank you for supporting independent music. There is no publicist here. There are no other songwriters. There is no advertising team. There is no record company. The music is made entirely independently in this room in its entirety. And then Marty and I put it out there, and thanks to you for supporting it over all of these years. Ever since Mighty Car Mod started in 2008, we've made the music ourselves, and we're really, really proud of that. And so we appreciate you following homegrown music and music that is full DIY. So thank you very much. I can't wait for you to hear the album, and I can't wait for you to see KEI to the City 2, which is out on Christmas Day. See you later.